poor triplets visit their mom's grave. A billionaire arrives claiming she was his wife. The wind howled through the cemetery, the branches of the old trees creaking under the pressure of the storm clouds overhead. In the distance, a shadow moved, cloaked in the dark mist of the evening. But it wasn't the wind that chilled Laila's bones. It was the man who had appeared, the one who dared to step onto her mother's grave. The man's voice echoed across the graveyard, deep and rich like thunder. "I am Gabriel Nehemiah," he said, each word seeping with an authority that made the air itself crackle. "I knew your mother. She was my wife." Laila froze. Her heart skipped a beat. Her sisters, Zara and Rebekah, stopped adjusting the fresh flowers at their mother's grave, their little hands trembling at the sound of his words. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Their mother, Naomi, had always told them stories of love, the kind that transcends distance, that survives against all odds. But never had she mentioned a man named Gabriel. Never had she spoken of a husband. Laila's mind raced as she glanced at her sisters. They shared the same stunned expression. Wide eyes, slack jaws, disbelief. Their mother's tombstone stood before them, like a monument to secrets long buried. Naomi ben Abraham, beloved wife and mother, rest in peace. A simple, elegant epitaph. Yet it felt like it was holding the weight of an untold story, one that could shatter everything they thought they knew about their past. Laila took a step forward, her voice shaking as she tried to steady her breath. "Who are you to say such things?" she asked, her words sharp like daggers. "Our mother never told us about you." Gabriel's gaze softened as he took a step closer, his shoes crunching against the gravel. "Your mother and I shared a life," he said. "She was everything to me, and I failed her." His words were thick with regret, and Laila could feel the weight of them as they hung in the air, suffocating the space between them. Her hands clenched into fists, her knuckles turning white. Her mother had always protected them, shielded them from the harshness of the world. How could this stranger, this man, claim to have been a part of her life without them ever knowing? "Where were you when she needed you?" Zara's voice trembled as she spoke, her small frame quivering under the strain of her words. "Where were you when we were growing up without a father?" Gabriel looked at them with sorrow in his eyes. "I couldn't be there. I made mistakes. I thought I could fix everything, but it was too late." Laila could feel the anger building within her, a torrent she had been holding back for years. "What do you mean, too late? What are you even talking about?" Her voice cracked as she took another step forward. "If you truly knew her, why didn't you try to find us? We've been alone, all of us, with nothing but her memory." Gabriel's face faltered, his jaw tightening as if he were about to say something, but the words didn't come. Instead, his gaze dropped to the ground in front of the grave. His hand reached into his pocket and pulled out a weathered envelope. The paper was yellowed with age, the corners curled and torn. He held it out to Laila. "This is for you." Laila reached for it hesitantly, her fingers brushing the edges of the letter. She didn't want to take it. She didn't want to know what it contained, didn't want to hear whatever excuse this man had for abandoning her mother and her sisters. But something inside her, the part of her that still longed for the truth, compelled her to take it. As her fingers closed around the envelope, she felt a strange shiver run through her body. She pulled it open and unfolded the letter. The handwriting inside was unmistakably her mother's, the familiar curves of her neat, flowing script. "My dearest Gabriel," she read aloud, the words cutting through the quiet cemetery like a knife. "If you're reading this, then it means I've already gone. And I'm sorry. I never wanted to leave you or our life behind, but I had no choice. There were things I couldn't tell you, secrets that I kept even from you." Laila's heart skipped a beat, and she looked up at Gabriel, her mind reeling. What is this? What secrets? What didn't she tell us? Gabriel's eyes were full of pain as he stepped back. I can't explain it all, not yet. But there's something you need to know. Naomi didn't just vanish. She made a choice, one that she kept from everyone, even me. Laila felt the ground shift beneath her feet as she clutched the letter in her hand, the weight of her mother's words crashing into her like a tidal wave. What had Naomi been hiding from them? "Tell us everything," Laila demanded, her voice trembling.
Now.
Gabriel's face twisted with regret, and for a moment, Laila thought he might walk away. But instead, he took a deep breath and looked them all in the eyes, one by one. "She didn't want you to know, but you're not just her daughters. You're mine too." The words were like a thunderclap in the silence. Laila couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded in her chest as the world around her seemed to fade into the background. What was he saying? She looked at her sisters, but they were too stunned to speak, their eyes wide with disbelief. It was as though the universe had just flipped upside down, and nothing would ever be the same again. "You have to be lying," Laila whispered, almost as if saying the words aloud would make them real. "You can't be our father." Gabriel's face was grim. "I didn't know about you. Not until recently. Your mother made sure of that. She thought she was protecting you for me." The storm that had been brewing in Laila's chest finally broke. "Protecting us from you?
Why?
Why did she lie? Why did she keep us in the dark?" Gabriel didn't answer right away. He just stood there, his shoulders hunched in shame, his eyes brimming with sorrow. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Because she didn't want you to end up like me." Laila felt as if the world had gone silent. The truth was beginning to seep through the cracks of her anger, and for the first time, she could see it, her mother's fear, her mother's sacrifice. But it only raised more questions. Why had Naomi kept her past hidden from them? Why had she chosen to protect them from Gabriel, from the truth? And now, in front of her, stood the man who claimed to be her father. A man who had never been there, never fought for them, never shared a moment with them. Yet here he was, standing before her, asking for something. "Stay away from us," Laila snapped, her words sharp like broken glass. "I don't care if you're our father. You were nothing to us. You've never been part of our lives, and I'll be damned if I let you ruin what little we have left of her." Gabriel's face contorted in pain, but he didn't argue. He just nodded, his voice barely audible as he spoke. "I understand. But just know, I won't give up on you. I'll be back when you're ready." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Laila and her sisters standing in the cemetery, their hearts heavy with confusion and pain. As he disappeared into the fog, the weight of his words hung in the air. This wasn't the end. And with that thought, Laila knew the real battle was just beginning. Laila sat in the front seat of their battered car, her fingers tightly gripping the wheel. Her heart had not stopped pounding since Gabriel had left the cemetery. The words he'd spoken echoed in her head like an alarm that wouldn't turn off. "I'm your father." She glanced at Zara and Rebekah in the back seat. They were silent, their eyes staring out the windows, their faces pale and unreadable. They hadn't said a word since they'd driven away from the cemetery, as if they were all trapped in a collective numbness. The triplets, identical in every way, were now scattered, their bond stretched thinner than ever. "Are you okay?" Zara finally broke the silence, her voice small, fragile, like she was testing the waters of their shared grief. Laila took a deep breath, her hands tightening on the steering wheel again. "I don't know." Her voice wavered with a mix of exhaustion, frustration, and confusion. I just don't understand. How could he just show up now after all these years? Why didn't he come before?" Zara's gaze moved to the side mirror, watching the dark road stretch behind them. "We've been fine without him, Laila. Mama did everything for us. She didn't need him." Her voice was firm but laced with an emotion Laila couldn't quite place. Maybe it was anger, or maybe fear that this man could change everything they had built since Naomi's death. "I know, but..." Laila trailed off, unsure of what to say. But he was her husband. Why didn't she tell us about him? About him? About us? Rebekah, sitting quietly beside Zara, shifted in her seat. Maybe she didn't want us to know. Maybe it hurt her too much to think about him, to remember him. She hesitated, biting her lip. Maybe she was protecting us. Laila shook her head. Protecting us from what? Her voice cracked as a wave of bitterness surged through her. From the truth? From the man who claims to be our father. It felt like the ground beneath her was shifting, slipping away from the safety she had built with her sisters. The reality of Gabriel's presence had cracked the foundation of her world, and now everything seemed unstable. The road ahead felt uncertain, unfamiliar, and for the first time in a long while, Laila was scared. Maybe he's telling the truth, Rebekah spoke softly, her voice almost a whisper. Maybe he really is our father. Laila shot a glance in the rearview mirror, her heart skipping a beat. You believe him? I don't know, Rebekah answered honestly, her voice unsure. But we should find out. We need to know. For Mama. For us. The car was silent again, save for the hum of the engine. Laila's thoughts were a mess, swirling with unanswered questions and the weight of her mother's secrets. She didn't know what hurt more, Gabriel's sudden appearance, or the realization that Naomi had kept so much from them. They pulled up to their small apartment building, a place that had always been a sanctuary, a space full of their mother's love and sacrifice. But as Laila parked the car and turned off the engine, she felt a sense of unease creep in. The familiar comfort of home now felt foreign. Their mother wasn't there to calm their nerves, to hold them together. And now, with Gabriel's revelation hanging over them, it was as if the walls themselves were closing in. Zara opened the car door first, the cool evening air rushing in as she stepped out. She didn't look back, her expression hard and unreadable. Rebekah followed suit, and Laila slowly stepped out of the car, her legs feeling heavy as she walked to the entrance of their building. It was just another evening, but nothing felt the same. Inside, their apartment was dimly lit, the air still and quiet. The living room was the same as always, familiar, cozy, and comforting. There were still remnants of their mother's presence, her favorite books stacked neatly on the coffee table, the family photos that lined the walls, the soft scent of lavender lingering in the air from the candles she used to light. Laila walked over to the bookshelf and ran her fingers along the spine of their mother's journal. Naomi had written everything down, her hopes, her dreams, her worries. The journal had always been Laila's way of connecting with her mother. It was the one place where Naomi's voice still lived, where her spirit lingered. Her hand paused on the journal. Her heart ached, and for a moment, she closed her eyes. She could almost hear her mother's soothing voice in the back of her mind. Don't worry, my love. Everything happens for a reason. You'll understand in time. But what was there to understand? Naomi was gone, and Laila had no answers. She only had Gabriel, the man who claimed to be their father, and the memory of a mother who had kept so much from them. With a trembling hand, Laila pulled the journal from the shelf and opened it to the last entry. Her eyes skimmed the words, the familiar handwriting calming her as she read. I hope my girls will find happiness, even if I'm not there to see it. I've made so many mistakes, but I've always tried to give them everything I could. They will grow strong. I just hope they know I loved them with all my heart. Tears welled in Laila's eyes as she read the last line, her mother's love and regret flooding through her. Naomi had loved them. She had given everything for them. And yet, there were still things she had kept hidden. The sound of footsteps behind her broke her reverie. Zara stood in the doorway, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. We need to figure this out, she said, her voice softer now. We can't just let him walk in and claim everything. Laila nodded slowly. I know. But how do we even begin? We start by finding out the truth, Zara replied. We talk to him. We figure out what he wants from us. Rebekah entered the room, her face still pale, but her expression had shifted. There was a determination in her eyes now. We need to be smart about this. We can't let our emotions get in the way. This is about the girls, about us. Laila felt a sense of resolve fill her. Her sisters were right. They couldn't let Gabriel's sudden appearance tear them apart. They needed to face this head-on, together. But as the evening wore on, Laila couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Gabriel had said too much, and yet there were gaps in his story. Why had Naomi kept them away from him? What was the truth she had hidden so carefully? As she lay in bed that night, the silence pressing in around her, Laila made a decision. She would find the answers. No matter what it took, she would uncover the truth about Gabriel, about her mother, and about the secrets they had been left with. But as she closed her eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. That something darker, something more dangerous, was waiting just around the corner. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. Laila's breath felt shallow as she paced the small, cramped apartment the next morning. The old wooden floors creaked under her weight, but it was nothing compared to the noise in her mind. Gabriel's words from the cemetery echoed in her head like a drumbeat she couldn't escape. "I'm your father." Her hands clenched into fists as she stared out of the window, her gaze falling on the alley below. The city was waking up, life moving forward, but for her, time had stopped. Everything she had known, her mother's sacrifice, the bond she shared with her sisters, the small, quiet life they had built in the wake of Naomi's death, felt fragile, like glass shattering under pressure. She hadn't expected her world to change so violently. She hadn't been prepared for the sudden intrusion of a man who claimed to be the father she never knew. And yet, here she was, with so many questions, so much rage, and a part of her, the part that still longed for answers, aching to know the truth. Zara's voice cut through her thoughts. "Laila, come on. We have to go." Laila looked up to see her sister standing in the doorway, her face drawn, her brow furrowed with the same storm of emotions Laila felt. Rebekah was behind her, clutching her worn backpack, her eyes red as though she hadn't slept all night. They had all barely slept. Every time Laila closed her eyes, she saw Gabriel's face, full of regret, full of pain. Her mother had kept him from them. But why? What had Gabriel done to deserve such silence? What had Naomi been protecting them from? "Where are we going?" Laila asked, her voice hoarse. "We're going to his office," Zara said, walking toward her with purpose. "We need answers. We need to know if he's really who he says he is." Laila's chest tightened at the thought. And what if he's lying? What if he's just a man with a sad story and a desire for money or fame? Rebekah's soft voice cut in. "I think we both know it's more than that, Laila. But we can't just sit here and wonder. We need to see him again, talk to him, find out why he's here." Laila hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Her sisters were right. They had to do this. For themselves. For their mother. They left the apartment in silence, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. The city outside was bustling, people moving in every direction, their lives playing out in fast-forward while Laila's world seemed to stand still. She could barely hear the sounds of the streets as she walked beside her sisters, her mind lost in thought. As they approached Gabriel's office, Laila's heart raced in her chest. The building was tall, gleaming with glass and steel, an imposing structure that screamed wealth and power. It felt like another world entirely, the world that Gabriel belonged to. Inside, the reception area was just as pristine, with modern furniture and soft, ambient lighting. The receptionist, a young woman with perfectly styled hair, looked up at them as they entered. "How can I help you?" she asked with a professional smile. "We're here to see Mr. Nehemiah," Zara said, her tone calm, but her eyes flashing with a fire Laila recognized all too well. Zara was always the protector, the one who kept everyone grounded, even when the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Nehemiah is a very busy man," she said, her tone becoming slightly more cautious. "I'm afraid he doesn't take unscheduled appointments." "We're his daughters," Rebekah blurted out, her voice shaking slightly. Laila glanced at her, surprised by the raw honesty in her sister's words. The receptionist's eyes widened, clearly taken aback. "His daughters?" "Yes," Laila said, her voice firm but shaky. "We need to speak with him. It's important." The receptionist's expression softened, and after a beat, she nodded. "I'll let him know you're here. Please take a seat." They sat in the waiting area, the minutes stretching into what felt like hours. Laila's mind raced. She couldn't stop replaying the events from the cemetery. Gabriel's words, the letter from their mother. Everything felt like it was happening too fast, too suddenly. And then, finally, the door opened. Gabriel walked into the room, his tall frame filling the doorway. He was dressed in a sharp, dark suit, his hair neatly styled, his face the same as it had been at the cemetery, firm but weary, as though every step he took had been weighed down by the burden of his past. Laila felt her heart stutter in her chest. He looked so normal. Too normal. But beneath the surface, there was something else. Something darker. Something he wasn't telling them. "Mr. Nehemiah," Zara said, standing first, her voice steady but her eyes intense. "We need to talk." Gabriel gave a small nod, then turned to the receptionist, dismissing her. He gestured toward the office behind him. "Please come in." They followed him into his office, which was spacious and sleek, filled with expensive furniture and paintings that looked as though they belonged in a gallery. It felt cold, sterile, like a place where people came to make deals, not to share emotions. Gabriel motioned for them to sit, then took a seat behind his desk, his fingers drumming lightly on the polished wood surface. His eyes never left them as they settled into the chairs. "I know why you're here," he said, his voice calm but heavy with the weight of their questions. "And I'm not going to sugarcoat things. I'm your father. I know it's hard to believe, but it's the truth." Laila felt a wave of anger rise within her. "Why didn't you tell us?" she demanded, her voice cracking with frustration. "Why didn't you try to find us? You claimed to be our father, but for 8 years, we had nothing. No letter, no call, no sign, not even a trace. Why?" Gabriel's gaze darkened, and he leaned forward in his chair. "I wanted to. Every day I wanted to. But your mother, Naomi, she made it clear. She was terrified of me. Terrified that you would hate her. That I would destroy your lives." Zara shot him a look of disbelief. "So, you just let her do that? Let her hide the truth from us? All those years, we grew up with no father, no man who could tell us the truth." Gabriel's face faltered. "I tried to fight her. I hired lawyers, tried to find a way to get you back. But your mother made it impossible. She was adamant that I had no place in your lives. And I didn't know how to break through that wall she built." Laila could feel her heart breaking, but she refused to let him see it. "So what now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You just show up now and expect everything to be okay? You think we'll just accept you?" Gabriel stood up, pacing the room slowly, his hands running through his hair. "No, I don't expect that. I never thought this would be easy. I've spent 8 years regretting my silence, my absence. And now I'm trying to fix it. To be the father I should have been. But I can't do that unless you let me." Layla's mind spun. She could feel the weight of the years lost, the years they had spent without him. But what was the right thing to do now? Was it even possible to let him in? To forgive the man who had been nothing but a ghost in their lives? "Why didn't you tell us about her death?" Rebekah asked, her voice small but sharp. "Why didn't we know she was sick? Why didn't you care enough to help?" Gabriel's eyes flashed with pain. "I wasn't allowed to. Naomi made sure of that. I didn't even know she was ill until it was too late." Laila felt the fury rise inside her again, threatening to overwhelm her. "You didn't care about her. Not enough. You didn't care about us." Gabriel didn't flinch. He simply nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "You're right. I didn't. And I regret it more than you could possibly understand. But I'm here now. I can't change the past, but I can try to be here for you. I can try to be the father you deserve." Layla's chest tightened as the weight of his words sank in. There was a rawness to him, a vulnerability she hadn't expected. He wasn't just some rich man looking to buy his way into their lives. He was someone broken, someone who had lost everything he cared about. But how could she let him back in? How could they let him back in? Her mind was a battlefield, the conflicting emotions tearing at her. She wanted to trust him. She wanted to believe that he could make things right. But there were too many pieces missing, too many unanswered questions. For the first time, Laila felt the full weight of what it meant to be stuck in between. Torn between the man who claimed to be her father and the mother who had fought to protect them. And as she sat there, watching Gabriel, she couldn't help but wonder, was he telling the truth? Or was he just another liar who had come to take more from them? Subscribe to this channel to support our growth. The storm had been brewing inside Laila ever since Gabriel walked into their lives, but now, as they sat across from him in his lavish office, it felt like it was finally about to break. His words, "I'm your father," kept hammering at her chest, pushing all the grief, anger, and confusion to the surface. Zara, who had been silent until now, crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair. Her expression was hard to read, but Laila knew her sister well enough to see the simmering doubt in her eyes. Rebekah, on the other hand, sat on the edge of her seat, watching Gabriel intently, as if she was trying to figure out if the man across from them was telling the truth, or just spinning another story. The air in the room was thick with tension, thick with the weight of unanswered questions and the unresolved pain that had been buried deep for far too long. Gabriel sat at the edge of his desk, his fingers drumming nervously against the wood as if trying to calm himself. "I know this isn't easy for any of you," he said, his voice softer now, quieter, like he was trying to find the right words. "But I'm here now, and I want to make things right." Laila's heart clenched. Make things right? How could he? How could he undo the years of absence, of neglect, of silence? He wasn't just a stranger. He was a ghost who had never existed in their lives until now. And now, here he was, sitting in front of them, offering them pieces of a broken past that didn't belong to them. "You say you want to make things right," Laila said, her voice cold but trembling with the weight of her emotions. "But what about all the years we spent without you? What about the years our mother spent raising us alone? What do you think could possibly fix that?" Gabriel's eyes darkened, and he took a slow, steady breath, as though he was preparing for something far more difficult than he had expected. "I know I can't change the past. I can't take back what I've lost, what Naomi lost. I can't bring her back. But I can be here for you. I can be here for my daughters." Laila's chest tightened. His daughters. The words were like a blow to her heart. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't asked for him to suddenly waltz into their lives with promises of things he couldn't possibly deliver. Her mind was racing, but she held her ground. "How can we trust you?" she asked, her voice sharp. "You've been gone for 8 years. We've lived without you. And now, suddenly, you expect us to open our arms and call you father? It doesn't work like that. You don't just waltz back into our lives like it's nothing." Gabriel flinched, the harshness of her words cutting deeper than she had intended. But the truth was, she couldn't hold back anymore. "I'm not asking you to forget the past," he said quietly, his voice heavy with regret. "I'm asking for a chance to prove that I can be the father you need. I can't give you back the years you've lost, but I can be here for what's to come. I can help you. I can be the man Naomi wanted me to be." The sincerity in his voice made her hesitate, but only for a moment. He doesn't get it. Laila fought the tears that were threatening to rise, angry at herself for even considering his words. Zara leaned forward, her voice breaking the heavy silence. "What about us?" she asked, her words low but laced with hurt. "What about the life we've built without you? Do you think we can just drop everything and suddenly act like we're one big, happy family?" Gabriel's gaze softened as he looked at her. "No," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't expect that. I don't expect anything. But I want to try. For you. For your mother." Laila's eyes flicked to her sisters. They were all looking at him now, and she could see the conflict in their eyes. Zara was fighting against her anger, while Rebekah seemed almost hopeful, as if the idea of a father, of someone to lean on, was what she had always secretly wanted. But Laila couldn't let that hope swallow her. Not yet. Not when the truth still felt like a distant shadow, something half-formed and impossible to grasp. "No," Laila said firmly, shaking her head. "This isn't some fairy tale, Gabriel. You don't get to just show up and make everything right. You don't get to erase the years of hurt, the years of wondering why our mother had to do it all alone. We don't need you to come in and fix things. What we need is for you to leave us alone." The words stung her as they left her mouth, and she could feel the weight of them settle like a cold stone in her chest. But it was the truth. It was how she felt. Gabriel looked at her, his eyes filled with something that looked like a mixture of guilt and understanding. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but then stopped, his gaze shifting to Rebekah, who hadn't spoken yet. Rebekah's eyes were downcast, her fingers twisting nervously around her bracelet. She was the quiet one, the one who always hid her feelings behind a soft smile, behind the facade of calm. But now, in this moment, she wasn't smiling. She wasn't hiding. "I'm not asking for perfection," Rebekah said quietly, looking up at Gabriel. "I just want the truth. We've been through so much. And now we have to live with whatever you're telling us. We deserve answers. We deserve to know why you weren't there." Laila's heart broke for her sister, for the vulnerability she was showing. She had always been the one to take the back seat, to support them both, to hold it all together. And now here she was asking for answers, asking for the truth, just like Laila was. Gabriel stood up, slowly, as if the weight of their words was too much to bear. He walked over to the window, his back to them as he stared out at the city below. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "I wanted to be there," he said. "I wanted to give you everything, but I couldn't. Naomi kept me out. She kept us apart." Laila's anger flared once more. "Don't try to make it sound like you were some kind of victim, Gabriel," she spat. "You made a choice. And we paid for it." Gabriel turned around, his face pale, his eyes pleading for understanding. "You don't know what she went through, what we went through. Naomi didn't just keep me away from you. She kept herself away too. She was scared. Scared of losing you. Scared of being judged for having children with me." Laila's breath hitched, the shock of his words sending a shiver through her. "What are you talking about?" Gabriel walked back toward them, his steps heavy, and for the first time, Laila saw the pain in his eyes. Naomi was hiding something. Something she couldn't tell anyone. Not even me. She didn't want you to know about it because she thought you'd hate her. Zara shot up from her chair, her face flushed with frustration. "What are you saying? What could she possibly have been hiding?" Gabriel hesitated, his eyes darting between them. He seemed to wrestle with the decision, as if weighing the cost of what he was about to say. Then, with a quiet sigh, he spoke. "Naomi didn't just run away from me," he said, his voice thick with regret. "She ran away from everything. She ran from the life she thought she could never have. The life with me." Laila's mind raced. What could this man possibly mean? What truth was he hiding that could explain his disappearance and the silence that followed? "You have to tell us," Rebekah whispered, her voice breaking through the tension. "What did she run from?" Gabriel's voice faltered, and for a moment, he was lost in his own thoughts. Then he spoke again, his words trembling as they hit the air. Naomi was pregnant when she left. With twins." Laila's stomach dropped. Twins. Why hadn't Naomi told them? Why had she kept this from them? Gabriel's next words shattered everything. "You're not just her daughters, Laila. You're my daughters too. Naomi didn't just hide me. She hid the truth. The truth about the twins she never told you about. She never told you because she thought it would destroy everything." Laila could barely process his words. The truth about her mother, the secrets, the lies. Everything she thought she knew about her past was suddenly crumbling to dust. "Twins?" Laila asked, her voice barely a whisper. And who are they?" Gabriel stepped forward, his eyes locked on hers. "They're part of your family. And their story, it's more complicated than you can imagine. Subscribe to this channel to support our growth.